Which models and brands are celebrating success in China? What is the latest tariff update? And which car makers have released new model news? This is the Automotive Update, presented by AutoVista24. I'm AutoVista24 editor Tom Geggus, here with the latest edition of the Automotive Update. I'm going to take you through some of the biggest automotive headlines from the last 7 days from AutoVista24 and the wider industry. This week, AutoVista24 took a deep dive into the Chinese EV market, dissecting powertrain, model, and brand performances. To discuss this with me is special content editor Phil Curry. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Tom. Good to be here.
So, Phil, maybe you can walk us through just some market trends before we get into brands and models.
Absolutely. Well, if we look at the entire EV market made up of battery electric vehicles or BEVs and plug-in hybrids or FEVs, this was up 43.2% in the first quarter with almost 2.63 million units registered. This was the country's best ever first quarter performance, but it does also seem to continue a trend of having a slow start to the year before registrations ramp up across the coming months. In the BEV market, this was up 47.9% in the first quarter with nearly 1.54 million registrations, and BEVs took 58.5% of the total EV market. In the FEV market, this was also up by 37.2% with 1.09 million sales. It took 41.5% of the market.
Okay, so that gives us a rough idea of how the Chinese EV market performed. But which BEV led in the first quarter of 2025?
Well, it was actually a very close race at the top. Leading the way was the Geely GM Xinguang, which had a great start to the year, topping the market in January and February, but it did have a slightly slower March. And the Wuling Mini was in second, and this was just 48 units behind at the end of the quarter, having also had a very strong start to the year. Now, the Tesla Model Y made progress in March, and that helped it to jump from 5th to 3rd at the end of the quarter, but it is some way back off the top two. Now, it's also worth noting that the BYD Yuan Up has made steady progress. That's the upcoming Atto 2 model in Europe. Tesla has also struggled this year. Third place was a good result for it, considering that its very popular Model Y only placed 14th in February before the traditional end-of-quarter rush helped it rise up the rankings.
So then, which FEVs led in the first quarter?
Well, as usual, BYD dominated. In fact, they placed 8 models within the top 10. Leading the way was the Song Plus, with the Quin L in second place, and that's a newer model that's only been on the market since May 2024. And then the BYD Song Pro ended the quarter in third place. Now, it's important to note that the Song Plus and Song L have been losing volume year on year, while the Quin L has been building momentum. So it really looks like an internal competition is intensifying in BYD's plug-in hybrid market.
So that is already giving us a bit of an idea, but which brands led the overall electric vehicle market in China in the first quarter, Phil?
Well, thanks to its performance in the plug-in hybrid market and improvements in the battery electric vehicle sector, BYD is clearly ahead. Their registrations are up 36.4% year on year, and they've got almost 700,000 registrations already. Geely has jumped up to second place thanks to its BEV performance. They've got around 244,000 registrations, so we can always see the gap growing there. The brand's also done very well in the plug-in hybrid market with its sub-brand Galaxy and the Starship 7. Geely registrations are actually up 274.3%. Wuling and its Beijing brand finished in third, up 47.7% year on year, thanks again to its great start in the battery electric vehicle market. Tesla ended the quarter in fourth. They were second at the same period last year, and they've experienced year-on-year growth of just 1.5%. It's also worth noting the performance of Chery and Leapmotor, who made the top 10 brands list in 7th and 8th positions respectively. This is despite them not featuring in either the BEV or FEV top 10 charts, so for them it's clear that consistency is paying off. Another brand to note is XPeng, which had the best volume growth in the first quarter. Its sales were up 328.8%, with half of that being attributed to its MO3 model in the BEV market.
Now, of course, we couldn't talk about the Chinese electric vehicle market without acknowledging some of the price cuts that have been going on. BYD has offered new discounts on 22 of its electric and hybrid models. Until the end of June, the Seagull is going to see its retail price drop by 14,000 yen in China, and that's roughly equivalent to 1,700 euros. This would take the BEV's list price from around 69,800 yen down to 55,800. Following the news of these pricing adjustments, the likes of IM Motors, Leapmotor, Geely, Galaxy, they all announced discounting as well. Now, there have been fears that this is going to introduce a race to the bottom mentality, with car makers competing and effectively eating away at their own margins. It's important to recognise that while BYD is leading the market and it's obviously looking to take as much of that market as it can, it's able to do this thanks to already very good revenue, but it also enjoys the benefits of vertical integration. So it's in charge of its own battery production, the design of chips, and controls operations. So despite multiple rounds of price cuts in recent years, some looking as steep as 30%, its gross margins continue to rise since 2021.
I think it's also important to note the sales of used cars in China. Now, according to Reuters, China's Commerce Ministry will meet industry bodies and car makers, including BYD and Dongfeng Motor, to discuss increasing sales of used cars that were never driven. This is according to a person with direct knowledge of the matter. So we're looking at changes across both new and used car sectors in the country.
Wonderful. That is all we have time for this segment, Phil, but thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to read Phil's article, do head over to AutoVista24. I'll make sure there is a link in the show notes. And while you're there, make sure you sign up via email too. And of course, subscribe to the AutoVista24 podcast wherever you listen to us. And check out AutoVista24's YouTube channel as well. Now, for a tariff update, on Wednesday this week, the Court of International Trade ruled that US President Donald Trump exceeded his authority with his tariff agenda. Now, it is important to note that the 25% tariffs on autos, steel and aluminum were not included in this ruling. But a day later, a panel of judges at the US Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit reinstated the tariffs while the legal challenges play out. So we're seeing an awful lot of turbulence when it comes to tariffs. During this swirl of announcements and news, Volkswagen Group CEO Oliver Blume told a German newspaper that the carmaker is holding fair and constructive talks with the US government on tariffs and wants to make further investments in the country. So, for example, Audi, which has no production in the US, is planning to produce some models there, although the brand has said that the plan predates the Trump administration. This week also saw a slew of model news. Alpine unveiled its new all-electric 5-seater sport fastback, the A390. It's going to be available from the fourth quarter of this year. At launch, the GT and GTS versions will range from €65,000 to €76,000. Final prices are going to be announced when orders open. Skoda has also presented a new take on its Favorit model as a modern electric car. The redesign considered the popularity of SUVs with a higher body structure for better EV battery placement. Peugeot revealed the GTI variant of its E208. As reported by Autocar, the model is expected to be presented on the 13th of June. The Xiaomi YU7 SUV is going to become available for purchase from July. Prices aren't yet available for the model, but the BEV looks set to compete with the Tesla Model Y. The Lynk & Co 08 has been launched in Europe. Cast Groups reports that the PHEV is capable of an electric range of 200 kilometers WLTP. Two trims look to be available: the More edition, which is going to cost around €57,000, and the entry-level core model at roughly €54,000. And finally, XPeng has launched a max variant of its MONA MO3. The sedan will hit China with a list price of 139,800 yen. Packed with advanced technology, MONA stands for Made of New AI. On Tuesday this week, the European Council confirmed it has given final approval to CO2 emissions target amendments. This gives vehicle makers more flexibility, allowing them to report an average across 2025, 2026 and 2027. The body confirmed that the regulation will enter into force on the 20th day following its publication in the official journal. If you would like to explore today's stories in more depth, head to the show notes and click the link to our companion article on AutoVista 24. A big thanks to Phil Curry for appearing in today's episode, and to web editor James Roberts for co-producing. The music was Better Find a Solution Fast by Richard Ames. Thank you very much for listening to the AutoVista 24 podcast.